All right. Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Empire Interviews. This is one I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about Iagon, a lot of the things that they're cooking in the background, what real world use case that they have, that they are creating in this space. I'm really excited about this one for a lot of reasons. I have a little background, which I've touched on in the medical devices industry, and I see a lot of overlaps here. So we're going to get to pick Nav's brain today. And so I'll be joined by Nav, and excited to talk about what we got going on. So let's see. All right. Hey there, Nav. How are we doing today? How are things?
Doing okay, doing okay. It's evening time here, Friday, and just enjoying as much as I can with the kids on the weekends and stuff, because obviously we don't get so much time other than that. But other than that, doing well, busy, staying busy. That's good.
That's fantastic. Yes, the touching grass and being with kids is a very important thing. I just came from Bogota, Colombia, and I'm now in Honduras. I was trying to surprise my kids yesterday. Shout out to Avianca. Never fly on Avianca ever. Don't do it. Go on any other airline. If you have to kayak, you have to swim. I recommend it. So that's my trying to surprise my family the other day. Didn't make it, but surprised them yesterday night. Got here at 10 p.m. Excited to be with them. Traveling is fun. Always has its excitement. But Nav, so tell us about yourself. I want to hear about your role in Iagon, as well as what is Iagon for people that don't know, because I'm excited. I have a little bit of knowledge and insight into what you guys are doing. But for everybody else out there, let them know what Iagon is, what you all are doing in the space.
Sure. I mean, my name is Navjeet, and I'm the founder and CEO of Iagon. We started the project. Actually, I come from a healthcare background myself, and I came into the bit space in terms of blockchain space when I read the Satoshi paper in 2013, and that's when I tried to apply, the blockchain technology on patient data privacy, and things like that. So obviously, the idea evolved from there, starting from the medical field, and then eventually moving to a much more, let's say, a generic scope. We have four founders on our team total, including myself. And basically, what Iagon is Airbnb for storage and compute. So we connect people that need storage with people that have storage, or people that have compute with people that need compute. So that's kind of a general, kind of high level intro, I guess.
I love that. And then, so you mentioned that you were in the medical field beforehand. Tell me a little bit about what your life was before crypto, before you started doing any of this, as well as when was the first time you heard about crypto and the first time you got into crypto.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I heard about crypto was in about 2013. That's when I first started reading some papers, because my interest in technology lies back in from the high school days, actually. So I used to do programming in high school, C++, and I had some, let's say, interest in computers and technology back then, and very little interest in terms of, I'm not a very tech savvy person, but I was interested in kind of modern technology. So I used to read papers, and I came across an article about Bitcoin. And then I started doing a little bit of research into Bitcoin, and then I came across the paper, and then I read paper. And obviously, it took me a few reads to let's say grasp what was happening. But the fact that I read it a few times was also interesting, because I was very interested in what the vision was here. It's about sovereignty of finance, right? And I think that was the initial vision of Bitcoin. Giving sovereignty to people and in control of their own finances. So I think that that became very interesting for me, and the technology behind it and how it was constructed became the second kind of thing I was interested in, how that I could use this in my own field.
I love that a lot. And yeah, that's kind of funny. I had this conversation with somebody a while back about developing a protocol that would be kind of like um, what I said. I said Tornado Cash, but for personal data. And one of my coworkers or one of my partners, one of my friends, he was like, "Yeah, if you're talking to venture capitalists, don't ever say Tornado Cash or Mixer service along with anything ever, period, in any way, shape, or form." But the reason that that was kind of related is because I think about data privacy is one of the big things that we have an issue with, I think, in this world today. And so I feel like Iagon kind of solves a little bit of the data privacy, not in the mixing service kind of way, but in the way that the information is actually compartmentalized and stored across different shards of information, right? Tell us a little bit about that and how that ability can be implemented into the healthcare space. Because in my mind, that's kind of like how you all achieve something like HIPAA compliance, is by allowing those differentiation in the way that the privacy is displayed.
Yeah, so I mean, we actually took a long thought at the architecture. Obviously, we didn't get it right from the go, um, and there was new laws that were implemented in 2018, which was one of the most stringent ones, which is GDPR, and it became very prominent in terms of how people wanted to store data, and it kind of became like, let's say, a benchmark in terms of um, privacy and security of data. In terms of compliance as well, right? So a lot of businesses have difficulty complying with this regulation, and a lot of cloud providers and people that are actually data controllers and data processors are having hard time being compliant, and at the same time they don't want to be data controllers or data processors because of these issues. What Iagon's solving is the way it's built. It's compliant by nature. So we're taking that Bitcoin vision and saying sovereignty of your data instead of sovereignty of your finance. What that means is we want to give user the full control of their files, and that's done in terms of architecturally, in terms of let's say high level, is that we give full control of the data access to the user. So that's on chain. So when a person logs in, they have to use their kind of on chain, which is currently layer one Cardano. So that's security already provided. That's the first layer of encryption. Um, and that's the access layer. And the second layer is obviously the user side encryption, which is password currently. Eventually, that will be customizable to how you want it. But there's two layers of encryption, and then the data is sharded and encrypted, and also spread across to subset of nodes that the user selects. So the user can select any kind of geographical region, be it Europe, be it Canada, be it US, be it anywhere in the world. We're currently across 6 continents and 500 over 52 countries and over 6 continents. So very distributed network. So these shards are spread across according to the subnet the user selects. And why that's important is that some of the data compliances requirements are being able to keep the data in a geofenced area. So for example, for GDPR, data cannot be transferred outside of the EU. And this allows the data controller and the data processor to be the user. So we put the onus of the compliance and everything on the user, and that way it's much easier for everyone to be, let's say, compliant by nature. And that's why we call it one-click compliance, because you when you sign up, you're by default compliant. And what this allows us to do is be an easy way compliant with other stringent regulations, especially when healthcare comes into play. So healthcare industry has different kind of regulations, and every kind of country has different regulations. For example, the USA, we have HIPAA compliance. And in order to be HIPAA compliant, you still have to have board members and all that are, let's say, experienced in HIPAA compliance. You have to have a certain amount of on-staff members. So it's a different type of compliance, but since the nature of the architecture is already compliant by default, it's much easier for the data controller to, let's say, do their job. And it's much easier to be compliant with that. So this is why it makes it much easier. And this is why it allows also for healthcare data to be very private and very secure at the same time.
So I love that. And this, I feel like you all have basically already built the infrastructure and had already thought out. There's something that I really am passionate about wanting to build, but I feel like you've already created the infrastructure for that in a sense. One of the things that I envision is basically a app where you have your decentralized identification and all of your medical data is stored on that app, right? So that way that you're not actually ever leaving your data with the hospitals. It's always on your own app, and then you yourself hold it. With that ability, you're then able to create different kinds of incentive models where maybe you as an individual can opt into sharing your data or some of it so that you can actually monetize your data. And so I have some background in the health insurance and like the insurance industry. And so like my thought was, if you can have more valuable data points, then the value of that medical data is extraordinarily higher. So if you created this form and structure that was very, very highly detailed, then that data could be very valuable. If you were to start to provide this kind of a service to people in developing countries, then because of the law of large numbers, let's say you have 100, 200,000 users that have monetized their data, you now have a large pool of money. So you could offer basically an emergency health insurance. So if somebody breaks their leg or they have like a heart attack, you've both created a model that is profitable, but a model where you can also allow these people immediate cash access to paying for privatized, top-notch healthcare in these developing countries where the price is exponentially lower than it is in the United States. And then you could just grow that, scale that way. But one of the big things would be having networks between hospitals that share information among themselves, between themselves. So your idea talking about how Iagon allows for the geofencing of data, that is good for the compliance side, but you could also allow the infrastructure for hospitals within a network to provide that information among themselves to give them better insights on how different treatments and things are going. And I love that.
I mean, we have something similar to what you just mentioned. We're working with Midnight on that, at least in proposal stage. Basically, what it is, and that's an inspiration I took earlier in my days. Is this is the first idea that I had about data storage. Obviously, became much more generic after that, and we concentrated on the generic solution first, because you need the infrastructure and the architecture in place first before you can build out the software. And one of the softwares that we're developing is going to be about this exact solution that you're talking about. I took inspiration from some of the portals that we have here in Norway. We have something called Alten, and we have something also Helse Norge. So it's like a different apps. Basically, you can access different things within these apps. And there's not a specific one for data, which is especially personal to you, like your personal data. And what I found interesting was in my workplace is that how doctors between themselves share information. It was not by the book at all, let's just say, right? So and it just happens everywhere. It happens in the public sector. It happens in the private sector. It's kind of amazing that how data is transferred between colleagues and information of sensitive data is transferred. So I wanted to have a new solution of where, you shouldn't be able to, you should be able to send it securely, and the patient should know about that, where that data is being sent. So what this solution provides is allowing users to, let's say, have their files readily accessed in one file, like you said, an identity that basically identifies you. We don't want to do the identity layer ourselves. We will use a third-party tool for that. But the third-party tool will allow you to have an identity, and based on that identity, you can basically access your medical files, whatever private information that you have. And to explain it in a simple analogy, what you would do, you would set cookie settings on specific files. So cookie setting meaning that, hey, I want it deleted after a certain amount of years, according to the regulations within that country. I don't want to share to third parties. So you set those guidelines in that specific file, and then you share it. The third party, or let's say the hospital physician, signs that, and it's more so, let's say, not a preventive system, but more so informative system where you get information about what's going on with your data after that. So let's say if you share it, we'll take a bank example. Let's say you take a passport, you share it with a bank, and you say, hey, I don't want to share it to a third party. I want to delete it after I leave the bank, according to the regulations. And if the bank doesn't do that, you get information in your system that it hasn't been deleted or it has been shared to a third party. That way, you get information on what kind of breaches are going in your data. And a lot of this information doesn't happen. And a lot of the things that we don't know where our data is going. And that's why we get all these spam emails, junk mail, and information that we don't get. How did someone call me, some random person call me? There's so much data leaks going on that we're not oblivious to. Only the ones that got announced in the news that we are aware of. So this kind of tool gives the patient or the customer more power over their data and where it's going. And if you want to share it with a third party and make an extra buck, sure, do that. But you don't have to share all your sensitive information to do that. So we're using Midnight for that. For example, for pharmaceutical research and other researches, you need to share certain information, but without sharing your sensitive information like address, name, things like that. That's not necessary for the research, will not be shared. And this way you could monetize your data. At the same time, physicians can also send you a contract to share, hey, I want access to your data. These are the guidelines. Are you okay with those guidelines, right? According to the regulations, of course. And this makes it much more easier, much more transparent for the user. And also you can share your access across the world. We're kind of stuck in a world where every healthcare system is all over the place. There's no continuity. You can't share that information if it's vital and you're traveling and or you're going abroad. You have to try to get all your information and send it to the new doctor, or you have an emergency while you're on a trip and you need it. Maybe you're allergic to certain kind of medicine. This kind of vital information could be handy at hand if you have that kind of app. And that's what we're trying to achieve here.
See, I love that. And there's so many other layers to this that I see personally. In general, like one of the things that I think is going to be a huge narrative and just a shift in the future is, I imagine there's a lot of this popularity with AI agents, right? Especially around like the healthcare, medical care side. I can see a situation where every individual person has an AI agent that can basically read and explain information, their own medical data to them. And so I see Iagon as like kind of a perfect use case for this, because you could have your specific agent on the cloud, or a range of a certain type of agent on the cloud. And then because only you as an individual can access your information, then you have kind of like your unique personalized AI agent that, because you have the key that connects to it, I might have Susan, somebody else might have Patrick, but these are the AI agents that are custom to my information and my information only. And then it would be kind of like that. I love what you guys are building, to be honest.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So there have been a lot of, well, I'll say you yourself have tweeted some interesting things about Fortune 500 companies. And so I'm excited to hear about what is going on there with you guys. Iagon is one of the projects, I think, in the Cardano ecosystem that has a lot of institutional use cases. And so it's not surprising to me that there may be Fortune 500 companies interested in Iagon. But can you tell us a little bit about that? I know some of the information is private, but kind of if you can't directly answer that, maybe how Iagon's strategy has opened up these doors with these much bigger companies.
Yeah.
And I remember at Rare Evo, there was an announcement of one of the services you all are offering that I felt like was kind of competitive even to the cloud storage model that Google has, right? After a certain period of time, they're like, well, you don't have any more space on your phone, but hey, we'll give you Google storage. And I felt like one of the offerings that you guys have is kind of similar, but with the added value of security as well as the decentralization. And if you wanted to touch on that too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we'll get to I guess for the partnerships or the pilot and the MVP. First, we have two proposals in the catalyst. One is for an MVP with Verth Group, which is a large Fortune 500 in Europe. So it's not a worldwide Fortune 500, but a Europe Fortune 500. And it has a revenue of, I think, around 26 billion. And we got in, well, before I get into that, I just want to make sure that I mention that these companies have approached us. We've been lucky enough to have these companies approach us, and I'll tell you why after. But this MVP allows us with Verth Group to monetize 3D parts. The 3D files will be stored on Iagon, and the royalties will be paid using at least Cardano Layer 1 or partner chain. So all the settlements will happen on Layer 1. And this gives us a big opportunity because the revenue for this is, at least in the first 2 years, they expect it to be about 100 million. Globally, they expect it to be a $1 billion industry over time. So it's a big, and some of the royalties will be paid back to Iagon, for example, and that's between an estimate, let's say if we take 3 to 5% of that global number, is about 30 to 50 million a year for Iagon node operators. 90% of course, that go to node operators that are providing their services to the network. The second one is a pilot, which we haven't given the details to the name yet. It's a Fortune 500 company. What that pilot entails is basically their business clients have a lot of servers that are idle, and that's including storage and compute. The first pilot is focused just on storage, and I'm talking zettabytes of storage. And this allows us to basically tap into those untapped resources, those idle capacities. How that benefits them is they can actually lower the cost of the subscription cost that they charge their business client and go into a shared revenue model because they're earning from these idle capacities from the network. And also the second one, if this is successful, what that creates, because they have thousands of business clients across the globe, it creates a distributed scalable network within an instant. And this is not centralized to any degree because every business client has a different name, different entity, and different region. So this would be a distributed scalable system in an instant. And that way they can, and the next step would be to be able to provide, let's say, a private distributed cloud service on their laptops that they produce globally. And this will mean that we would have a white labeled Iagon solution on their laptops if the pilot's successful, and eventually that's successful as well. That will create millions of users in an instant for Iagon, and also it'll be a good network effect for the Cardano community and the Cardano ecosystem, because Iagon's using layer 1, and we are planning to stay in Iagon with Cardano in the token economy section. So that's the pilot. We're in discussion with a few other enterprises which are very early stage. And the reason why we're getting interest, that's kind of like both companies have approached us, and we've taken kind of an approach of communicating a little clearly, I guess. I'm just speculating, but also at the same time, I did ask why the interest in Iagon and why, where did you hear about us? And the one things that they have a continuity of, they've heard me speak somewhere, or they've heard Iagon somewhere. And the message that we're trying to, let's say, communicate is for them very clear from their understanding, and it, let's say, fits their business model and what they're trying to achieve, which is, competitiveness in terms of cost effectiveness, increase their profit margins, and at the same time, for example, for Worth Group, it's more so monetization, allowing them to monetize in a secure way where the 3D files cannot be printed multiple times, and that's where the storage comes in. So there's different use cases that they see in their business, and that's what we've noticed, that usually these Web2 enterprises, if they're really interested in a solution, they're very communicative. They're actually approaching you. And we have been lucky enough also at the same time, and I call it more of like a trickle down effect, I guess, where you release one name, and then you get interest from another, and there's other interested parties that want to work and understand what the solution is, and maybe that will mature into also a corporation or a collaboration. We never know, because every other enterprise has their own unique use cases. But it's great to see that we have interest early on as a small business, and that there's interest in the technology. And one of the things that we believe that sets us apart is, of course, the patent, right? We filed a patent in 2018. That makes us secure in our technology, because there's no one else that can copy that idea. And legally, any company working with someone similar that has a similar idea is not approaching it the right way. And for businesses, that's very important. It's very important that the technology is secure, not just from like a technical perspective, but from a monetization perspective as well. At least from our believing, our understanding, and also cost effectiveness, and profit margins are another thing. And regarding our solution, in terms of the cloud storage, we're trying to make it obviously as cost effective as possible. I think that we're trying to create something like Dropbox, where they have users can store their files, and much more secure, much more compliant as well, compared to other solutions, and also cost effective. So right now, for 1 terabyte of data, you can monthly you pay about $2 a month. So very competitive in that aspect. Of course, we do want to improve that aspect much more in terms of the UI UX experience. We are still working on that, and that hopefully will mature a little bit in January or February.
Gotcha. So putting this in like a different perspective, what this reminds me of, and kind of why these huge titans of companies are interested in Iagon, is kind of like what we saw with Exxon and Shell. And I'm saying in the sense of Bitcoin mining. Everybody was kind of surprised that Exxon and Shell and these huge petroleum companies were Bitcoin mining, and that they were basically using like flaring in order to power these Bitcoin miners, because that is like excess waste that they have, and they were able to monetize it. So now when you have these giant companies that have all these data centers, that have all this space, have all this compute, have all this stuff, but they're only using a small portion of that, right? Because they are built so that way when they need to scale, they can scale, and so they can handle their traffic. Now you're telling me that they're able to basically use the same kind of ideology behind flaring, but with their data centers and with their compute. So now we're being more efficient and losing less excess, right? Trimming the fat in a sense.
Correct. Yeah,
Right.
that makes perfect sense, and that's really good. It's you're using the idle resources. Why not? It's kind of a less waste of space, and you're saving energy at the same time.
I love that. That's fantastic. So now we've gotten to know about Iagon. I think what you guys are doing is really amazing and beautiful for a lot of different reasons. This is something that, like, in my mind, should be integrated into every medical tech device for the most part, because one of the things that a lot of these medical device companies want and care about a lot is if they were able to capture data from the use of their technology, right, they would only want it within their own system. So using some kind of system like Iagon, a company like Varian or Siemens or Intraop, I have to say that because I used to work for Intraop and sometimes I still do stuff there. And I love what they're doing, really innovative stuff. But a company like that, you would be able to track larger amounts of data within a secure network, which would be HIPAA compliant. And then if you implement these things, such as what is available from the Midnight Network's tech stack, you would be able to do these in a way that you're protecting the privacy of the patient, but you can also probably see how many times a user uses your machine, right? You could also see how many times if the machine ever fails. You could anticipate some of the replacement parts, some of the service maybe needing to be taken, but within your own system. So I think that's amazing. Fantastic, absolutely. I'm going to go on a little bit of a side narrative. One of the things that's interesting about Introp is they create a linear accelerator that uses electrons, and it is able to produce what's called the flash effect. So flash effect or ultra high dose rate radiation therapy is technically still experimental or not for clinical use. But there's a lot of studies that have already occurred, a lot of results regarding that. And basically, they're able to give you a much larger dose of radiation for your cancer treatment within a fraction of a second. So instead of multiple fractions and treatment over a long period of time, you're actually able to treat somebody all in one setting. And then so that's kind of like innovative. The science shows that it spares healthy tissue. So from the medical side, I think it's really cool. But if there was a way to capture more information, perhaps that could further bolster all of the medical data that's already out there, right? And then so for different people that are solving different innovative cases in science, like I think decentralized science and the whole theory behind what a lot of these groups are doing along with these kinds of technology are the way that we get like one objective truth in the science world. I am really excited about these kinds of solutions, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting fact that you put up there, right? Because right now the sharing is not really too much allowed, right, by the governments and stuff like that. So a lot of red tape, and there are tools being built that can help with this and allow people to share and share publicly the information if they'd like to. But it's a very tricky slope. Let's just put it that way, because there's all these red tape going on.
Absolutely. And that was actually one of the biggest concerns that I had in things that I saw like in clinical trials, right? So one institute or one clinical outlet might be allotted 200 patients, but there might be 5 clinical outlets that are also allotted 200 patients, but they don't share data within each other. So each one is only working off 200 data points, when in theory, with a solution like Iagon, you could have one of those clinical outlets working with 2,000 data points, right?
Exactly.
In order to, further
Using
the,
midnight.
yeah, absolutely, using Midnight. And this is something that I've, I guess, conveyed to some of the people over on the Midnight side. This is a solution I'm excited about, hopefully being a part of the creation of. I know it's a very costly developmental cost. It's pretty high, but I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
something that this brings me back to is when I think of digital identity solutions, I don't know, maybe you can't tell me which one that you all are going with or who you're working with around that, but I always think of Identis and Atala Prism. Are those kind of the structures of decentralized identification that you guys are thinking of going with or working
Uh,
around?
yes, I mean, we've been talking to a few people. I don't know if it's too early to mention who we're planning on working with, but we have a couple of people in mind that we think that fit this scope and have really good, um, let's say, knowledge within this space, right? So, and it's not Atella Prism, I can tell you that.
Okay.
So it's, but that might narrow it down a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I love it. I love that. And then, so one of the questions I always like to ask people that join me on this show is, so if you could travel anywhere in the world, right? And the check is covered. You can go to multiple places for different parts of the meal if you'd like. But what are you eating? And paint me a picture of, like, with words of what you're eating, and what you're having to drink, what's for dessert, all that.
Anywhere I could go.
Anywhere. You can go to multiple places for the same meal.
Multiple places for the same meal. I honestly, I like my mom's food. I would travel to Canada. First, I would get like some of her cheese rotis. We call them basically. So it's kind of like a let's say parota. It's called. So basically, it's an Indian dish where you have a roti, which is kind of oiled a little bit. With the cheese roti, it's stuffed with cheese inside, and with Indian, basically, let's say spices and onions and ginger and all that, and it's fried on a pan, and it's eaten with yogurt. So I would probably that would be my first meal. Not
That's
something crazy, but that's probably one of my favorite meals, probably. And obviously, sog is another one. It's a spinach-based dish. It's another Indian dish. Again, I would like my mom's homemade cooking for that. If I had to choose different, probably fly to India. I've eaten at some local side street streets there that have some amazing food, and just like normal Indian food that's locally cooked with fresh vegetables and stuff like that. I just find it different taste, different flavor, really good. So like any kind of dal. Dal is lentils basically, and it's it's vegetarian dish as well. What else? Um, I would love to experience other food that I haven't eaten before. I would love to go to Japan and eat locally there, and maybe even uh,
Wagyu.
Wagyu beef, maybe. Uh, we'll see. I don't know. I haven't tried it locally there. I've tried it somewhere here in Norway, but I'm not sure how it tastes differently or not. For me, it didn't taste too much different than
Yeah.
regular meat, but I think that trying local food is always probably the best. And that's why I kind of, if I had to go to a place and pick one, I'd probably go to my mom's home cooking.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then, if you're gonna watch something on television, or like you're gonna watch a show or a movie, what things do you look for that pull you into watching one of these things? Like, if you're gonna, like, most people have different tastes, right? Genres, or like things that catch their eye. What are
Yeah.
usually the things you look for?
This is a good question. Like, I haven't thought about too much of that. What I caught like lately, I haven't had so much time to watch films or movies or Netflix or whatnot. But um, let's start from the previous days. I guess in the university days, I would say I would watch more the old school gangster movies like Godfather. Those were my favorite ones.
American Gangster is one that always I love.
Yeah,
Denzel
yeah,
Washington kills it.
yeah. So any of the old school ones I like. I think that Pulp Fiction was great. And yeah, Godfather, all the trilogy. The Godfather trilogy was amazing. Um, yeah, what else? And then after that, later on in the years, I got a little bit into like this anime shows, Dragon Ball Z. I started watching, and
Have
then
you watched One Piece by chance?
I haven't watched One Piece. A lot of people have been telling me about this, but I watched One Punch Man.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that the
One Punch.
series?
Dude, my son, who's 12, he actually really liked One Punch Man, and that cracked me up because I was like, "What is going on with my son?
It
You're
was a funny
12."
show because
he's going
Yeah,
through his existential crisis because he's kind of like achieved everything he aspired to achieve and then some. And then my
yeah,
son's like, that was like one of his favorites. And I was just like, why do you like this so much? Like,
yeah,
like it's good for like us,
yeah,
but the guy's 12 and I couldn't imagine, that whole
yeah.
perspective where it's like, now what,
Yeah,
he
now
did.
what? Now I've achieved everything. It's just, I think it's a satire, to be honest. That's what it feels like, but it's kind of funny in a way, but it's also a really good art, amazing art in that show. So I came to appreciate a little bit of the anime art from Dragon Ball Z and then One Punch Man, and maybe I'll watch that One Piece. I heard about this as well. Uh, Other things that I'm attracted to, I guess, sports games, anything sports related. If there's a sports match on, like basketball, especially when we're with friends and stuff, is something that's nice to watch. Uh, and action movies, of course. The old James Bond films were pretty good as well. So there's a lot of interest, and I like some of the shows. Let's say, what are the good shows? I guess for me, one of the best movies, of course, Gladiator shows were Breaking Bad. Is a great show, at least in my opinion.
Now, here's
uh,
a question. Have you seen the like Studio Ghibli movies? There's Spirited Away or yeah, Spirited Away, Princess
no,
Mononoke, Castle in the Sky. Those
no.
you have girls, don't you?
I have one girl and one boy. I have a 9-year-old girl and then a 7-year-old boy. Yeah.
I was gonna say you should definitely watch these. The Studio Ghibli movies. Spirited Away is probably the one that I'll recommend the highest.
Okay.
But it is globally acclaimed. I think that studio tends to get more international awards for the artwork, the music, the drawings, so many different things for the stories, and they have like 12, and they are all absolute masterpieces. But Spirited
Is
Away is probably
is Spirited Away with the horse, right? If I remember correctly.
no, so that is one,
Okay.
but Spirited Away, that one is like a spirit. I remember that one.
Okay.
I watched
Okay.
that one in
Okay.
theaters with my parents. But
Yeah.
the Spirited Away, it's beautiful. It has a little girl who basically gets trapped in the spirit world, and so she has to like get over, like figure out how to get out. And really beautiful story, but really good one to watch with kids because it has it's a little bit like it's scary in a little
Mm.
bit, but not like it's like scary.
It's
It's a
not over
good
the
kind
top.
of, you know what I mean? It's good for like that age group,
Yeah.
and it's
I'll
really
definitely
beautiful.
check it out. Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah.
Definitely one of the best movies ever. But
Mm.
all those are good. And about One Piece, because I have to like tie this up. I was talking to just a minute ago with Tokyo Pay. And
Uh-huh.
so we were talking about One Piece, and One Piece is kind of like the best characterization of everybody in crypto because the main character is a pirate, but he's only a pirate because he does whatever he wants, and he doesn't like fall into what the world order or the world government wants him to do. Like they
Okay.
want everybody to be a certain way, and he just does whatever he wants, and then so that makes him a pirate, right?
Yeah, okay, okay, yeah.
And he's going out there to basically like achieve his goal, which is getting the One Piece, which is like the thing that answers all your wishes, or at least
Uh-huh.
gets you one wish, right? So
Nice,
I
nice.
feel like we're all in this space. We're kind of like that. We're all pirates, but not because we're bad or because we're doing anything wrong, but because we are chasing after our dreams and aspiring to do things against what the world government might want us to do. So
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
highly recommend. But Nav, look, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you so much. This has been great. I want to get back with you in the future when you all have some more announcements and there's new things going on with Iagon,
Yeah.
as well as I've already said what interests me. In about a month, my contract's up, so I'll be job hunting. I would love to, be a part of what you guys are building. Throw that
Awesome.
out there. But thank you so much for your time. This has been really awesome. And do you have final words and how people can support Igon and ways that they can get involved?
Sure, sure. We have I'd love to guide for you guys to get some support. We have 3 catalyst proposals currently. One is an audit for the enterprises, and the other two are enterprise adoption, which is MVP with Worth Group. That's a real world use case that garner adoption in 6 months. And then we have also the pilot, which is a Fortune 500 company that will bring a lot of attention to Cardano. So we have a lot of use cases. So I encourage you guys to go check out the Catalyst proposals, vote. You can search for Iagon or ask in any of our social channels. We have a lot of coming up. We have delegated staking up that will allow people to delegate their tokens to node operators as well. We have compute net, mainnet coming up as well. So a lot to look forward to. And if you guys have any questions, we're always available on socials. You can reach us out on Twitter, Discord, or Telegram. Yeah, I mean, keep an eye out for Iagon, and I think there's a lot happening.
Dude, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share. Make sure you're following Iagon. Make sure you're following NAB. I'm going to have all of the relevant links in the description. Thank you so much for your time, man. We'll see you again on the next one.
Thanks for having me.
Peace.